No.
So, normally when I have a class that doesn't come close, I just solve the problem by moving out.
Moving out.
I don't know that I'll do that with the Zoom.
All right, Beth's here.
Yoga classes, a lot of people go to the back wall when they don't want to be close to the teacher. One of my
There's
favorite
Chad.
stunts
I've been a back to the
after
kind of
people
person my
sit
whole
down.
life.
Yeah, so was I. So I know how to solve it. I take my mat and I go to the back of the room
And turn the whole
and
class
it's
around.
now the front of the room.
I'm glad my teachers didn't do that.
Good to go.
Okay,
Yeah.
quick introduction. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. I was inspired to bring Chris up here because he's a really good teacher, really good information. So enjoy.
Hello, thanks for joining us here tonight. I'm really
I think at the library on breathing.
I'm breathing.
Breathing.
Mute your.
Hello to those on Zoom. Welcome. Please do remember to mute your mic so that we can't hear your conversations here. Do we have a view of who's on those are?
Oh yeah, can you do the gallery view?
Yes, that's all we get to
Is
see.
he on?
He's got the gallery.
Okay, there's next gallery. I'm not in it. We're not in it.
Right, here.
Cool.
How many? Oh, there's 8 participants. So.
Everyone's
You're
muted
late
except
enough that
us.
you're gonna get forced into the front of the
That's all right.
Hi. How are you? How are you? Good.
Alright, so tonight, what I really wanted to have you experience is how much influence your breath has on you. Breathing is one of those very few things that is both automatic. You don't think about it, you still breathe. But it's also very easy to control through your will, through your desire. Most things that are automatically controlled, like your digestive enzymes, your heart rate, those are really hard for us to learn to control mentally. So not only does the breath have a huge influence on so many parts of our body and mind, paying attention to the breath lets our mind see and influence the body more than any other practice I know. Lecturing and having intellectual knowledge of this is interesting, but it often doesn't help us to embody the type of breathing that will make it easy for us in whatever activity we're doing. Some of the benefits of breathing, I'm going to go through them as we're doing specific techniques, but breathing, it's specific breathing relaxed with your diaphragm through both nostrils, lowers your heart rate, lowers your blood pressure, decreases your stress level and hormones, increases lymph drainage, which is part of our immune system, by up to 10 times, like not just a little bit. One of the things that happens when you breathe through your nostrils instead of your mouth is that this substance called nitric oxide, doesn't matter if you know these names, gets produced in our body. And this is sort of a miracle chemical that affects us so much. It dilates the blood vessels. So that's part of the decrease in blood pressure. It also allows more blood flow to all the organs. So again, breathing this way literally benefits every organ system in your body. It will allow your digestive system to work more optimally given every other situation that you're in. So what I want to do first is have people mouth breathe. And I'm going to show you how we'll do this. And we're not going to do it a long time because I find it very uncomfortable. My suggestion, once we do the breathing practices, is that you sit a little bit away from the back of the chair so you're not kind of slumping like this, and I'll explain more why. You can't really breathe properly if your spine is not upright. So sitting in doesn't have to be way forward, just a little bit up. Hands should be comfortable. Maybe this way in the lap, folded, whatever's comfortable. But the idea is the spine and all those muscles in the back along the spine are nice and lifted so that you almost feel like something's pulling you up right from the top of the head. Now I want us to just open our mouth and just breathe through your mouth for, it'll probably be less than a minute or so. Notice everything. Notice what part of your body's moving. Breathe a little deeper than normal. Notice how you feel, mentally. Try and think at this moment of all the things you need to do tomorrow. If your focus is not very good, you can stop mouth breathing. And, you can even relax back. That's uncomfortable, isn't it?
Dry.
It's very drying. Yes. How many people felt like your mind could focus? I didn't give you much time to do it, but could you notice that my mind feels very distracted when I breathe that way, and I feel very little ability to be able to focus it. Anybody else have something they felt during that?
Well, I am a mouth breather. I recently I've been working on it, but it's just my default. My default is mouth breathing. And when you were breathing, I wasn't, just like this. It's not like hyperventilating or anything, but I've been working on it, but it goes way, way back to childhood.
Right.
And it's really hard for me to remember to breathe through my nose during the day. At night, I can't believe I'm telling this to the group, but at night I tape my mouth shut.
Did you read Nestor's book?
I read that, and I taped my mouth shut. So for 8 hours a night, I breathe through my nose, and then during the day, it's whenever I think of it. So anyway, I'm working on it.
So one of the ways in which I've helped a lot of people switch from that habitual mouth breathing, because it's a default for you. It's not a natural way to breathe for you. But again, right now in the US, there are millions of people that do that. If you were to practice certain breathing practices, and they have an influence on your nervous system, that again, sort of subconsciously, your body will recognize as positive, that starts to switch that default. Much more so than taping your mouth at night. And I'm not saying don't do that, but you're not conscious in that time. So that in some ways, you're not changing that default message. Whereas if you spend 15 minutes a day, preferably twice a day, doing conscious breathing through the nostrils, it really does change that default, right? So what we're going to do now for the next practice, and again, what I want you to focus on once you are breathing in this way is what is your current state? Physically, do you feel relaxed, stressed? Mentally, is there a difference? Are you more or less stressed? Is it easier or more difficult to focus? So you're really just going to be mindful to the state that you're in at the moment while you're breathing this way. The next thing we're going to do is just switch from mouth breathing to breathing through both nostrils. And while we're doing this, the first thing we're going to try to do is breathe steadily. And by steadily means basically the same volume of air coming in per second. It'll mean that air coming through the nostrils feels very smooth instead of like it lurches in and then stops quickly. And as we're doing this, I'm then going to give you some other instructions to layer on top of what you're already doing, breathing through the nostrils. And we'll see how you feel after breathing this way. So again, if you're leaning back, just come right a little bit off the back of your seat so that you have to lift up through the whole spine. And then, your eyes can be closed. They can be partially closed, open. You just don't want them to be a distraction, whatever you're seeing. So allow yourself to relax and just start breathing through both nostrils. Compared to mouth breathing, you should feel, again, more settled, more grounded. There's a calmness that breathing through the nose brings. And that calmness and relaxation of breathing through the nose is going to increase, be even more relaxing if we have almost all the movement in the lower part of the torso. So staying with the just breathing through both nostrils, allow the movement to be in the belly coming forward as you inhale, the sides of the low torso moving out. Maybe you even feel a little bit of breath and expansion in the low back around the kidney area. The chest doesn't get involved in this type of breathing. And when you focus on that lower abdomen and make the movement occur in the low abdomen, you should notice a calmness. You may notice relaxation, not just mentally, but in the muscles. If the shoulders are held up, often breathing this way will let you relax the shoulder blades down the back. Final bit of this technique is going to be extend the exhale a little bit longer. Inhale should just feel natural with the movement limited to the lower part of the torso, the abdomen. That exhale is slow, steady, and smooth. without straining to force more breath out. Let the breath release and keep extending that exhale. The belly will move in as you're exhaling very deeply. And then as you inhale, the abdominal muscles relax and the expansion of the lungs pushes the belly forward and expands the low abdomen. And now, breathing this way, think about all the things you have to do tomorrow. As you feel ready, if your eyes are closed, you can slowly open them. It's more relaxing to push back a little in your chair. Feel free. So I'm going to start with the last thing I had you try to do, which was focus on what you have to do tomorrow. Were you more successful than when you were mouth breathing? It's a lot easier to have a clear, focused mind. One of the greatest benefits of these breathing practices is the distractions and the unwanted mental activity fades away. And your mind, quite naturally, is more under your control. So this type of a belly breathing, if we want to be technical about it, we can call it Abdomino diaphragmatic breathing. Your abdomen is what expands. I like to make anatomy simple. So my anatomy on the breathing, the process is your whole torso is a cylinder. And the diaphragm divides it in half, pretty much. Lower part is your abdominal cavity. And this lower part, unless you have real problems, never changes volume. Right? The things that are in there, if you fill up your belly, that area gets bigger. But in breathing and in movement without ingesting things, this area changes shape. It can change shape, but not volume. The lungs are up here in the upper torso, the thoracic cavity. And when you inhale, they expand. Something has to move, right? If I inhale and my chest and upper back expand, that's one thing we can do. But I specifically directed you, don't expand that upper part of the torso where the lungs are. So what you're allowing is the lungs to expand downward. Physically, when we breathe, the diaphragm should be the major muscle. And the diaphragm is a domed muscle, domes up like this. And then when you breathe, contraction brings it down. Right? So you can see if I'm not letting the top expand, it's going to push down into the abdominal part and make it puff out. That's what the expansion is. You're not really breathing into your belly. The air is going into the lungs, but you're not letting the upper torso expand. So the movement is down low. And that forces you to use the diaphragm to do most of the work. There's muscles in between the ribs, both inside the ribs and out, and those help you exhale and inhale as well. And you noticed when we did deep, deep exhales, you're using the abdominal muscles, right, to push in, making this area smaller, which pushes the lungs up and squeezes more air out. If you're doing relaxed breathing, not trying to exhale as deeply, you don't use those abdominal muscles very much. You just breathe in and then you let the air go out. So the diaphragm moving down expands the lungs and it creates a vacuum that sucks the air in. And then when we exhale, that air flows outward again. And that's why, again, if we want it to flow out fully, we need to use the abdominal muscles, especially the deep ones, to squeeze slowly and slowly, and more air will come out. Anyone have questions on that way of breathing through both nostrils? We'll just call it belly breathing.
What
Yes.
would be the benefit of belly breathing compared to thoracic breathing? Because I tend to default to my upper.
Yes. The difference is, and we're going to do a full breath in a little bit, using all the muscles. When the diaphragm, the intercostals are doing the inhale, the message given to your nervous system is to relax. It pushes you, these terms now many people know, but please ask any questions, just raise your hand anytime if it's not clear. It pushes your central nervous system towards the parasympathetic, towards the calming, relaxing way that lets our body heal itself. When we inhale and expand the chest, we use a lot of what I call auxiliary muscles. They can help you breathe, but ideally they're not the primary movers. And they can include everything from the pec minor that comes this way, so that opens your chest, several muscles in the back, from the trapezius in the upper shoulders all the way to muscles that go up to the neck and lift and expand. When you expand the chest like that, when you inhale, you're sending a signal to your nervous system to push some of that energy over towards sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight. And that increases your stress level. And chronically, definitely does not let your body function ideally. It will, and literally every organ system will be affected because it affects your blood flow. It will affect the pH of your blood, which then your body has to try to compensate for. If you chest breathe, you tend to breathe shallower, which again is going to send a signal to the body not to be relaxed. So to learn slow belly breathing with a deep exhale, if there was one practice, one way to breathe that's going to increase your health, that's going to be it. That's not the way we always want to breathe. You know, in Alaska, there aren't many people here that do not do something vigorous. You know, daily life requires some real strength and activity. Those vigorous activities are going to require more than just that relaxation response. And that's where a full breath begins with that belly breathing. But instead of keeping all the movement there, like I'm doing now, when I exhale fully this time, I'm going to inhale, let the belly come out, the ribs come out, the low back expand. Then I'm going to let the ribs expand. Then I'm going to let the chest slightly expand, especially up here under the armpits, so that you feel the back expand as well. One thing up until this pandemic, even most doctors didn't know, is a huge amount of your lung tissue is in the back of the body. Your lungs aren't way up here by the chest, even though you feel your chest move. They're way in the back. So when you're breathing like this in a full breath, I want you to focus on that area up around the shoulder blades and feel that that has a slight pulsing and expansion. that comes after the belly expands. And if we do it in that order, where it's belly breathing, ribs, and again, I'll give you some instructions that will help this. Then up into the upper torso, that's going to give you a full breath. It'll be both bring energy to you, but still keep you calm. Yes.
I guess background information before my question to anyone that doesn't know is that blood is that the parasympathetic state, the relaxed state. The blood is directed to the viscera, like to the guts and everything. So I guess my question actually is, abdominal breathing is part of why it stimulates the parasympathetic state, because it forces blood into like muscles that are closer to the viscera, and it sort of like forces blood into the abdomen. No, okay.
No. It's the nervous system signal that it gets. So when we breathe, we have a number of different receptors that will monitor how we're breathing. Every day, our pH of our blood has to be controlled very tightly, and the control of the pH of your blood minute to minute is from how you breathe. So those things give, the way you breathe gives a signal to the nervous system that then says, send more blood, hormones, digestive enzymes, whatever's needed to the gut viscera. So
Cool.
yeah, it's more of an indirect effect through the nervous system.
Thank you.
Great question. Anyone else? Any questions, comments on how you felt?
Yes, I have a question out of curiosity. I played a big horn when I was in band. Never understood what the diaphragm was, and the band director was always going, breathe through your diaphragm. Is there more air somehow when you have pushed, when you've done it so that you are breathing through the diaphragm? Is there more air? I mean, why would he be worried about whether you can breathe through the diaphragm?
Because there's no way that you're going to be able to inhale fully. Like the diaphragm is meant, it has actually two functions, but the primary one is breathing. So in a full breath, like we're going to do in a minute here, the diaphragm should do about 70 to 80% of the work. Even when you do any other type of breathing, your diaphragm usually works a little, like you can't immobilize it so much. But it should do 70 to 80% of the work. The ones between the ribs, maybe 15%. And then all these muscles up here, only another 10 or so percent, somewhere along like that. That again, these do very little, and the diaphragm does most of that. And that's the only way to get a full lung full of air. If you breathe with your chest muscles, you'll notice you can't breathe in that much, right? If you try to just expand the chest, I run out of breath right there, and I'm straining to do that. Whereas if and I guess it's a good point, a good time to demonstrate full breathing. If I do a full breath, belly, ribs, and then upper torso, and remember, think back body as well. I'm saying belly, but think all the way around into the kidney area as well. So if I do that, that inhale was probably 4 times as much air coming in. And again, I felt much more relaxed doing it. So when you are inhaling this time, again, I'm going to direct you to have belly, ribs, then allow a little expansion into the upper torso, mainly feeling it in the back, not so much the chest, because you'll overuse the chest muscles and actually not fill the lungs as much, as opposed to putting your awareness in the back, which will help the lung in the back of the body expand. And that can give you like 10–15% more air just by focusing like that on the back of your body. So join me this time. Again, move a little bit away from the back of your chair. If you can sit cross-legged comfortably that way, that would be a wonderful way to breathe.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so anyone who can easily sit cross-legged on a chair, or if you want to go to the floor, there are some advantages to having your legs crossed for these practices that are not essential at all. Allow yourself to relax, let the eyes either partially close or at least just relax the focus on them. And then go ahead for a couple of belly breaths, just letting yourself be relaxed. Breathe in through the nostril, feel the belly move, the belly move out to the side. And as you exhale, squeeze the breath out. And over the next 2 breaths, let the exhale get a little bit deeper. And after the next full exhale, we're going to do a full breath. Go slowly. Inhale into the belly. Feel it in the kidneys, ribs. Now the upper back underneath the shoulder blades expands. And then slowly let the air out. Squeezing the abdominals gently, the deep abdominals. The breath will keep going out as long as is comfortable. Smoothly let the air come back in. Belly, side of the body, and then that expansion working upwards slowly as you inhale. So each of your breath rates are going to be a little different now. Try to make the exhale as long as possible without straining. The breath is smooth on the whole in and out breath. And even those transitions from when you exhale to when you start to inhale become very smooth. You're not trying to hold the breath, but you're exhaling. You're not trying to rush the breath in. It's like a pendulum. The breath swings to one side and it kind of pauses on its own there for an instant or a second or two. Then you feel it's ready to move the breath in the other direction. Notice how you feel now, keeping with this full breath and awareness in the back of the body. As the belly goes forward, feel the back. As that expansion comes up, notice the subtle but definite expansion in the back. You can do about 3 to 5 more breaths, depending on how slow you're breathing. Just stay with that comfortable, smooth breath. As you exhale, this time just exhale. Let your eyes stay how they are and just focus inward on how you feel. Let the breath just go back to uncontrolled. body feel? How does the mental state and nervous system feel? And allowing the breath to be uncontrolled. Notice how the body is moving with your totally relaxed, uncontrolled breath. And as you're ready, open the eyes, adjust posture in any way if necessary. And once again, I'm going to start with the last thing I asked you. What'd you notice about your default breathing? Belly breathing. All right. More so than, right,
So before.
than before. And how much effort did it take? Virtually none. Belly breathing also reduces your need for oxygen. You're working less hard. It tells the whole body to relax and not do anything unnecessary. Again, with nothing else, it allows the parts of your body that are rejuvenating and healing and restorative to work. And again, most of us don't understand how much the body has to restore itself. You know, the linings of your intestines, I forget at the moment how quickly, but they're replaced really quickly. You know, those cells are turned over. All those kind of things happen much easier, much more effectively when your nervous system's relaxed and your belly breathing. So you can see we did 2 minutes, 3 minutes of full breath, and belly breathing was more natural just after that short practice. Your body wants to breathe in the way that's best for it. Again, we've just been trained out of it. And so a little bit of training, and like I said, ideally 15 minutes, morning and evening is such a great way because it's early in the day and then it's last thing or towards the end of the day. And it can be 5 minutes, and you can see it will still have a profound effect. So again, it's something that in my mind should be taught to us when we're just wee little tots. Because and I have taught to 6 and 7 year olds these techniques. Kids are great. They only want to do, they notice how it feels, and then if it's good, if it feels good, then they're attracted to it. They love it. When I first taught kids, I thought, oh, this is going to be way too boring for them. They're not going to, this is so subtle, they're not going to feel it. And it's just the opposite. Because they're in tune kind of with how they feel, they notice the effect right away. This is one of the other benefits. Again, the more we know how our body is feeling at the moment, the better our body works. It increases that mind-body connection. There's a fancy word for focusing inward called enteroception, where your awareness is on what's happening in the body. One example would be being able to feel your heart rate. And they've shown that teaching somebody who wasn't previously able to notice their heart beating inside their body, when they learn how to be aware of their own state enough to feel their heart, not with their hand here, just feeling it inside their body, their perception of everything else about themselves is more accurate. So there's a great study with people with eating disorders. And like when they look in the mirror, they literally, you know, maybe paper thin and they see themselves as obese. Teaching them this practice of feeling their heart rate beating changes that dramatically. And a friend who teaches to a lot of that group, and it's one of the major techniques that she's found to be really effective. So again, just this ability of focusing inward like you were on feeling the breath, on feeling where the body is expanding and trying to manipulate that and control the breath so the body expands like you want, that in and of itself is going to make you notice a bunch of other things. What foods bother me? You know, what activities or people maybe have a toxic effect on. So again, the advantages and benefits of breathing this way will really go through every system in our body. And like I said, especially that perception of self. And I think at this point, I'd like to, again, open it up to questions. If you have any specific question, I have a couple more techniques that we'll probably work on. But I want to hear what questions or maybe something you would want to learn.
On the screen there. Anna has her hand raised.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. This has been great. You know, I just looked at my heart rate. It was 44. It's normally 64. But I wanted to make one comment. The screen keeps flickering back and forth, and I think it's because Elizabeth is not muted. And I was going to ask if Elizabeth could please mute herself. And then I do have one more question. I wanted to know, is this something that somebody who's on oxygen can also practice?
Yes. Of course, with any sort of medical issue, you want to be very gentle and cautious and slow in your approach. But learning how to diaphragmatically breathe can significantly improve lung function. You know, the capacity and how efficiently their lungs are working, even with whatever other issue they have. So my dad passed of lung cancer and had emphysema from a life of smoking, and quit smoking about 10 years before he died. And I taught him some of these breathing practices, and he definitely felt that it was hugely helpful. He was not oxygen dependent, but his thing was it allowed him to be able to hike distances and lengths that he had never hiked in his life. So yes, somebody with on oxygen, in some ways it's even more important, you know, because they're already needing supplemental oxygen. If they can belly breathe, their oxygen requirements of their body go down. So automatically they're going to have better perfusion and more effect from the oxygen that they're using.
Great, thank you.
Welcome. Thanks, Anna.
Yes.
How does this apply to physical exertion when doing activities such as hiking or hiking and those breathing and belly breathing?
Thank you. Wonderful question. And it's really surprising. There is a point of exertion that you just need to get maximum air in. Depends on the person, according to studies that I have seen. You can get over 90%. Most people up towards 95 or more % of your maximum exertion, breathing through your nose. Any of you know triathletes that are from the past? The name Paula Newby Fraser sound familiar? She's like a 9-time Hawaii Ironman champion. She used to work with a chiropractor that I did some work with years ago up in Boulder. And he would teach people to do a technique, a yoga technique, which I'll be teaching probably tomorrow night, called Ujjayi, which is nasal breathing with a constriction of the breathing passage. And that is the way she did her Ironman. All of her training was done that way. When you race, if there's a point where you go beyond that, if you're doing a 10-hour race, you can't go in the red zone. So her goal was to be able to breathe through her nose through that whole race. I worked with somebody, a pretty serious cyclist, not long ago, who was trying to do that and not having any success, was finding they could only maintain like 65% of their output when they were breathing through their nose. They did one of the 4-week online workshops that I frequently teach. And they went back and tested. They got 98%. My suspicion is their max probably went up too. So basically it's practice. An ideal way. I imagine up here with the weather, some of you have indoor stationary bicycles. That's a great way to do it because you're under control. When you're outside, it's a little harder to, if you're training yourself to do that, because you might hit a really steep hill where you have to go to mouth breathing, whereas on a bike, you can control the resistance. So that's often the way I would train people, either on a bike or on a treadmill. And once you get the hang of it, like I said, all of a sudden you'll be able to be, my goodness, I used to, once we got to 5% grade, I had to breathe through my mouth, and now you're going up 14% grades breathing through your nose. And again, remember, that's going to decrease your oxygen requirements. It's going to make your whole hike or run or snowshoe, whatever it is, that much easier. Yeah. Other questions? Yes.
If one was having a sleepless night, they will fall asleep. Would this be helpful?
Yes. Yeah, and I work a lot with people. There are, again, things later in the week we're going to be doing that are really calming, almost sedative. And they basically force you to belly breathe. And what I have found, and personally what I do as well, is wake up at 3 a.m. You kind of feel sort of awake now, is you go to belly breathing and try to remember what it's like to fall asleep. Right? The belly breathing will become, natural pretty quickly. So then you have your mind, and it's, what was that? I was closing my eyes. There was, you're gone. So it really can. And the other thing is, if you're going to be up from 3 a.m. until 6 because you can't sleep, if you're relaxed in that time because you're belly breathing instead of anxious because you can't get back to sleep, your whole next day is going to go way better. The less sleep isn't going to affect you as much. So again, literally, this is something, there are no downsides. And it's something that pervades everything with literally a beneficial effect. So it's a great sleep aid. And I frequently recommend people that have trouble falling asleep. I will give them specific order of techniques to do to kind of just make their state of arousal just lower and lower and lower. So yes, it's a great thing to do for sleep. Anyone else with a question or comment on how you felt or? All right. What we're going to do now, I mentioned, so just as a review, nostrils. That's the way we want to breathe. That's what these things were designed for. There's, again, many benefits. It moisturizes the air more before it goes in. It makes it easier on your body when you breathe through the nostrils. So nostrils, belly breathing, smooth breath. If that breath has a steadiness, even in the transitions, as I really find that using the image of a pendulum is so helpful. The breath comes in like a pendulum, and the pendulum doesn't rush, right? It's not like it hits a wall and bounces off like those little clacker ball things. It just goes to the side and it pauses. And the biggest pendulum I've ever seen is the Smithsonian Institute. The bigger the weight, the longer it pauses. That thing, like, it just swings over and it like hangs there. And when it's ready, it moves the other way. And so as you learn to breathe this way more skillfully, that's what will happen. You're smooth with the breath. It goes out, 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 out. And if you really moved it out, it's like there's the second where you're not quite ready. The body's not ready to breathe in. You're not really pushing out any more air. You're not trying. It's just hovering there. And then again, your body will give you a signal. Oh yeah, slowly. So one of the things is, again, to make the same amount of breath come in over each period. When you start your inhale, you usually have to slow it down, right? Because if you don't do anything, a whole bunch of air will come in the first 3 seconds. So you slow the breath coming in at first. Then in the middle, it's kind of what would be natural. And at the end, you actually, to keep the breath coming in, you have to work a little bit harder. Your lungs are more full and it takes a little bit more. Just make sure you don't overdo the effort, especially in this upper torso, because then you're going to shift from the relaxation to excitation. One way, anybody have difficulty in exhaling really, really long? Like you felt like you exhaled, and when you tried to use the abdominal muscles, nothing happened. No. Excellent. So if so, you're all really relaxed in here. Because if you get too tense, right, tense up your outer abdominal muscles. And now try to exhale with your abdomen. It doesn't go in, right? These outer muscles are contracted. They're stopping the deeper muscle, the transverse abdominis, from pushing in. So part of it is learning, again, just by practice, and it's easy, your body knows how to do it, is first these outer ones push in a little, then they relax, then the middle ones. If you just focus on the deep ones, contracting and relaxing the rest, your body will take care of the rest. And one way to learn to exhale deeper is to do a technique that is in yoga that divides the exhale up into, for tonight, we're just going to do 3 parts. So you're going to inhale slow and steady, mostly with the diaphragm. It's fine if a little bit of chest and upper back come in, but not much. And then when you exhale, you're going to exhale 1/3 of the volume of the lungs and pause. Only for 2 to 3 seconds. Then you're going to exhale the second third and pause for a couple seconds. Then you're going to exhale as fully as is comfortable. Pause for a couple seconds. Inhale slowly, smoothly, belly, ribs, torso. If you find you're gasping, and when you go to inhale, your inhale's really short, it means you were extending the exhale a little too long. make the pauses a little bit shorter. But this is one of the techniques that can really help you. So we're going to do several rounds with the 3 pauses. And then I'm going to take you right in back to the technique we did where you're just breathing in and exhaling smoothly all the way. And hopefully you'll notice that, yeah, I could push a little bit more air out. And again, notice what that does. When we exhale deeper, again, the signal to the nervous system is chill. You know, things are calm here. You know, whoever's in there controlling us knows what they're doing. Any questions? All right, this last technique, we'll find our comfortable seat. And yeah, let the eyes go to a state that they're not a distraction. Notice the way you're breathing without trying to control it. And then after an exhale, that's a little more full than before. Start to do a nice, comfortable inhale, belly breathing, letting the ribs gently expand. Feel the breath in the back of the body as it comes up the torso with the expansion. Then exhale slowly, 1/3 of the volume, and stop. Smoothly start to exhale again and stop. Smoothly exhale, stopping. If it's a strain, just inhale. Then inhale slowly, belly, ribs back, then upper torso. You can have a different rate if your breath's a little different. 1/3 of the volume, pause. Exhale another 1/3, pause. Exhale, empty, pause. Smoothly, slowly inhale from the bottom of the torso, expanding slowly up. Continue with a few more rounds where you're just focusing on how you feel with this 3-part exhale. Often after a few rounds, you have more connection and the exhale can be a little more complete, but don't force it. Be sure that you can inhale slowly and smoothly. Let yourself do one more round of the interrupted exhale. And just smooth, full breath. Slow, relaxed, but really deep exhale. So the strong contraction in the abdomen is so slow, it doesn't really feel strong. It's just deep. And then the relaxation allows, again, the expansion of the lower torso first. Finish this last full exhale. Allow that pendulum to go as far as it can comfortably swing. And then release control of the breath. Just relax and feel the state that your mind and body are in. And as you're ready, open the eyes. People feel a little longer exhale. Yeah. And again, this is a few minutes of one practice. You know, yoga has an outlook that, like the physical practice, the postures you usually see, you'll see results of within days or weeks. The breathing practices, their full effects can take months, because again, you're literally retraining the nervous system. You're resetting. Any of you know the term or significance of vagal tone? That's something that helps to define your stress level. The tone in your vagus goes way down. You get more relaxed. At your normal resting state is more relaxed. You will notice, as Anna mentioned, your resting heart rate will go down. So the benefits are huge, and as you can see, the results, the beginning of the results come almost immediately. But I can assure you, and I think Lori, from her experience with these breathing practices, can relay her experience as well. The full effect will take you some number of months. You'll still continue to feel improvement for quite a long time. And when that runs out, I can show you some more breathing exercises. I do want to thank you all for coming tonight. Any questions, I'll hang out as long as there are questions. And the other sessions that I'm doing will basically build on this. So tomorrow night, we're gonna do some other exercises that will kind of soup these up, make them even a little bit more effective. Same thing Thursday. We'll just go a little bit deeper. I'll always keep reviewing this basics. So if any of you have a friend or someone that wants to join us on any of the nights, they're all set up that you can come anyone as your first, and I'll do this part, you know, kind of simply. They might not get as much explanation of effects, etc., but they'll learn the technique, so they shouldn't feel lost at all. So again, thank you very much. Yes, sir.
A question I have would be the coordination of the diaphragm and the abdominals. Like on that inhale, should the abdominals just be in a relaxed state?
Yes.
And then just engage them on the exhale?
Correct. Okay. And so the abdominal muscles are only used in breathing, and again, to any significant amount, on what's called a forced exhale. I don't use that because forced has all those subconscious. I just say a complete exhale. But when you exhale, when you don't try to exhale, when you just relax and let go to default, you notice your abdominals don't do much. It's your diaphragm comes down, the belly goes out, diaphragm relaxes. The belly now wants to go back to its normal shape. So it pushes in and the diaphragm comes up, then you breathe in. And it's only when you're doing a complete exhalation that you get the abdominal muscles to squeeze in to push the lungs up more to force more air out. great question. And I could actually see in you those exhales, you know, going deeper, and it's so enjoyable. You know, the feeling is pleasant, and it really does tap us in to that joy that's intrinsically inside of us, that happiness that gets buried when we're too active and mentally stressed, the kind of things. And this is why it's such a good practice before meditation. And in the other sessions, we are going to be doing these breathing practices and then sitting for a short time afterwards to really notice some of the effects of these breathing this way, even for 5 or 10 minutes. Questions? All right. I hope you all had an enjoyable time and can take something away from this that you keep using. You know, remember, this was an hour, but those little sessions were, you know, each breathing practice was like 5 minutes. So if you can make 5 minutes to do this in the morning and evening, I'm pretty sure that even if you don't come to any of the other sessions, that you will notice some benefit from this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you that joined us via Zoom. I hope you have a good evening.
And there's a couple sheets up there with Chris's schedule. If anybody wants. I don't remember. Okay.
Saturday.
Oh,
Saturday.